looking at the speed and the melody. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Heavy Repping. My name is John Tron Davidson and I'm here once again in our super best fancy lit test location in the southwest of England. So today sees the start of a brand new series I've been wanting to do for some time called The Hand. The whole point of this is that when you're watching guitar playthroughs, for the most part, everybody's looking at the left hand. They're looking at the speed and the melody and the gymnastics of that style of guitar playing, whatever that style might be. I thought it'd be a good idea as a pick person to have a look at the striking hand of these players. Now, the majority of this stuff seems to be a lot of heavier styles, which is absolutely fine, but if you've got anybody that you think I should check out who isn't just playing gent and tech metal, please give us a shout in the comments and let me know, or hit me up on Instagram at Heavy Repping, and I will have a look. So today, as our debut, we're going to watch Mapmaker, a guitar playthrough by Sunspear. Now, I don't know anything about these guys at all, and full disclosure, the way that I found all of these, rather than seeking out players with which I was familiar, was to search on YouTube for guitar playthroughs and then see what was the most recent posting. So with all that being said, let's have a look at this. Mapmaker by Sunspear. Here we go. Oh, he's playing a chord. Fan fret as well. And on the gator. Really setting the stall out here. Now, what you'll notice is that they're both, from what I can see, certainly the other guy who's doing the tapping, he's playing Ernie Ball Everlasts, which are pretty cool picks actually. And they've got what looks like your typical situation here, in the sense that they're obviously tuned down, but using fairly light gauge strings given the amount of movement and oscillation that's transpiring. You'll also notice that your man here, when he goes in for particularly sort of thing, the hand is coming round like this, and he's kind of just pinching forward a little bit to give himself more leverage. Really cool. Really interesting to see, like, again with this style, especially with heavily syncopated styles, that you're not, the point is not to be super tense, because then you're going to build up lactic acid in your arm and give yourself problems. The whole point of playing this way is to give you an opportunity to have control by using lighter strings with stiff picks. In this guy's case anyway. The other guy, it looks like he's playing, I know that they're Everlasts, but I think that's probably a thinner one. Because they're both playing through fractal systems, and therefore everything can be dialed in, like, you're not working with the same reciprocity that you get with Valve, which in this case, in this style, is exactly what you want. You don't want extraneous string noise, you don't want extraneous 60 cycle going on, you just want what you're playing and silence. So that makes total sense. But they're both very considered. There's not a lot of rash decisions going on here. Now obviously that's partly because it's a playthrough, but I get the impression that that's more or less how they would play. Also, your other guy playing the court, he's doing a lot more adjusting in his hand, which would indicate that maybe that pick's not bonding with his skin quite as well as it might, but he obviously likes the thickness, so that's what he's keeping going with. See how relaxed he is on the long strokes? Your boy Red is almost doing like a kind of circular motion like this, and other guy on the fan fret, he's got quite a relaxed hand, which is good for this, because if you were tense it'd be murder. But all that stuff, that's a lot easier when you're tuned down with a lighter gauge to give you more of the cow sort of sound. Because when I'm playing my baritone, which is strung 1468 at the moment, trying to play that style, because you're over a much longer scale length, because it's 29 inches, it means that everything is much more firm. Like even at A standard, there's still rigidity to it. If you're playing a 7, the whole point of having a fan is the fact that you've got a lighter tension on the high strings and higher tension on the low strings, but you can still use a lighter gauge, which is, otherwise you'd need a mate to help you get the strings down to pull off those sorts of runs. So it makes total sense that they're doing it that way. Much more tension here. Little adjustments going on. It's only really in those like really syncopated sections that they're tensing up, which is understandable. The nature of these sorts of picks is that they are curved a little bit around the edges. It's not as like deliberately beveled as you would get from something like a Dunlop 500 series, because obviously Ernie Ball have taken that approach with them. If you got a flat top and back and then you have domed edges, then the more blunt the edge is, the more you're going to get bass response out of it, which obviously in this context is very helpful because they're playing in a heavy style. But it also means that the egress through the strings is a lot easier. If they had picks that were, if they were playing through valve, which they're not, but if they were playing picks with a more aggressive tip, something like BHL Ben Eller Wizard Pro, or like a Mastery Infinix Jazz or something like that, then there would be less effort required, but they also might not get, they get more speed, but they wouldn't necessarily get as much bottom end, although because it's going through a digital system, it's quite difficult to know how much dynamic there really is there, because the dynamic in this context chiefly is from rise and fall within the music, as distinct from a rise and fall in tone, because you're really only going from clean to mega drive, and that's it. You don't have the same sort of, it's 0 and 1 rather than 1 through 10, if that makes sense. Well, there you go. Cool. Well, it's interesting watching that because they're both quite relaxed. They're both sitting in your standard Western style position rather than the classical position, which is more up here, which is favoured a great deal by people who play this style of music, because it's not as hard on the wrists. It's more there's a much straighter line, better ergonomics that way. The key thing to take away from this is the relaxation in the hand. They're only tensing up when it is absolutely necessary, and that's really important. So if you are playing in a style where you're going, if you're like this the whole time, all you're going to do is build up tension in your arm and make it more difficult. And then it's like if a drummer plays like the whole time, all they're going to do is wear themselves out. And because in this style there is so much syncopated work and you need to be right on the money, it's not like just slashing away in your quote-unquote rock context. This demands a much, much higher degree of accuracy just by the nature of the style. If you don't have control over your right hand, you're just going to have problems with everything. So this is a good example of people playing in that style with the right degree of force. Whereas if they were trem picking, for example, the hand would most likely have been even more relaxed, because trem picking for that length of time, I mean, that's what, nearly 4 minutes. If you were going in the traditional black metal style, for example, then you'd find that absolutely knackering, and having a finer point would on the pick would make a lot more sense, because then there's way less resistance, especially if you're playing in the old black metal style and then you're doing whole chords and trem picking a lot of chords. That's absolutely knackering. So really cool to see that, and some pretty nifty beatdowns as well. So yeah, good stuff. I hope you enjoyed this first sojourn into this sort of situation. I'm looking forward to doing more of these as I get my eye in with it. I find with a lot of commentary stuff, and I guess that's what this is, that a lot of it centres around being negative. I'm not really interested in that, so it's more just an observational standpoint. If you get anybody that you think I should check out, stick the video in the comments, I'll have a look. But in the meantime, my name's John Tron Davidson, this is Heavy Repping, and I'll see you soon. So remember, if you're not sure what to do in life, rep hard and rep heavy.